Welcome and thank you for joining us today to learn about the basics of managing debt. I'm Stephen Seewer. I'm a financial consultant with Alliant Retirement and Investment Services, and I'm joined with my partner, Kevin Rucker. Together, we serve the greater Bay Area. Please say hello, Kevin.
Hello, everyone.
Kevin and I have been working together for some time now. When I met him, he was still living at home and he was fresh out of college. And over the past 9 years, he's developed into a skilled financial consultant. And he also became engaged and got married. He became a dog owner, companion, guardian. I don't know what the right word is there. And this year he purchased a home in San Francisco. Part of the reason he's a great advisor is because he has been disciplined in his own financial life and he's put to practice many of the concepts we discuss in these workshops. Together, we work as full-service financial consultants, and our work goes far beyond the topic of today's presentation. And because we help members with financial and retirement planning, we need to underscore that although we are employees of Alliant Credit Union, products offered through Alliant Retirement and Investment Services are not credit union share accounts. They are not covered by share insurance or guaranteed by the FDIC or any other agency. Investments can fluctuate in value, and it's possible to lose money. Alliant Retirement and Investment Services partners with LPL Financial to make investment products available to our members. LPL is one of the largest independent brokerage firms in the United States. So let's get on with our presentation, which is the basics of managing debt. We're going to talk about three different topics. I'll talk about some of the basics, and then Kevin's going to talk about managing debt wisely, and he'll conclude talking about credit scores and why they're important. So, debt basics. Let's talk about how much debt you can really afford and the types of debt. There's really two broad categories: bad debt and good debt. Have you heard about that? Bad debt is defined as stuff that credit lines that have a high interest rate. And we've seen people with credit card interest rates as high as 29%. That's just insanity. That by definition, that's a bad debt. It can be used to buy something that you don't need. It's maybe an impulse buy or a frivolous purchase that you're just going to end up paying for many months or many years, depending on how you're managing your debt. Or buying something that's trendy, designer labels or something. I once read a piece that said only working class people pay for designer labels, that when people are wealthy, they really don't use labels that way. And if you see celebrities in labels, those clothes were probably given to them by the designers. And it's only us, the working class, that are splurging on items like that. On the other side is good debt, which typically comes with a low interest rate. So you think about a home loan for a home purchase or a home equity line of credit. Those are going to have lower interest rates than credit card debt. And it's used for something that is likely to go up in value or might help you in the workplace. A great example of something that could be either a good debt or a bad debt is a truck. On the bad side, maybe you like going up to the lake with your friends and you really want to buy a jet ski and a trailer and you need a truck, and you go out and you buy a fancy, shiny truck with big knobby wheels and you finance that with an auto loan and maybe put some of it on your credit card. That is the definition of bad debt. But a truck could also be good debt. If you are a brand new journeyman plumber, or you've joined the carpenters union, or you're in an apprenticeship in the construction trades, a truck could really help you. It could help you advance in your career. And if you get a good, reasonable interest rate on that truck, that's good debt. And then finally, another example of good debt is, as we talked about earlier, buying a house, going back to school. Those are all examples of good debt. So when is it okay to take on debt for a purchase? So you're buying something that's likely to grow in value or improve your earnings ability. We've talked about two of those: a house and a truck for work. You can handle the monthly debt payments easily. You've got to have slack in your budget if you're going to take on any debt. And hopefully it's going to be for a short-term purpose. You have an emergency fund in place. You've got to have cash on the side in a savings account in case something happens that you're not anticipating, so that you're not in the lurch and you end up missing credit card payments, because that can severely affect your credit score, as Kevin will talk about later. And you're already saving regularly for retirement. This is so important. From the time you get your first paycheck, you should be making a contribution to some kind of retirement plan. That could be an IRA or a Roth IRA or your company's 401k plan. The more money you can get into these plans, the younger you are, the more beneficial it will be. What you save in your 20s and 30s will have a huge impact on the standard of living you enjoy in your 60s and your 70s and beyond. If you're not overpaying for the item you're buying. Kevin, can you think of an item that you'd likely overpay for other than something like Beanie Babies?
I would say video game consoles,
Okay.
not myself, but just out there as consumers.
Baseball, maybe a card, right? You could purchase a car that's in high demand, and maybe the dealer has tacked on added fees, and maybe a year later, you wouldn't have those added fees. And that you're getting good interest rates. Again, these people that have interest rates at 29%, you're just never going to get ahead. So much of the payment that you're making is strictly the interest that it's going to be really hard to bring down the principal value of that loan. So from here, Kevin's going to take it and he's going to talk about wisely managing that debt and then on to credit scores.
Yes, thank you for all those insights, Steve. So on through section 2 here, managing credit card debt wisely. Let's first talk about using credit cards. When it comes to credit cards, it's important to make sure that we don't fall into any bad habits. So let's take a look at this slide, and there's 6 here that we'd like for you to avoid. Using credit cards to make ends meet. We have to think of credit cards as our money, right? We are borrowing it from the credit card agency, and they are a lender, but we only want to use really money that we have. Some individuals don't even use credit cards that often. They use their cash from their debit accounts and their checkings and their savings. Owning more than 4 cards at a time is it's not really the right strategy. You can manage everything you need to with 4 or less cards. Now, when our balance exceeds 25% of our credit line, this may start to affect your credit score. So we want to try to stay below 25%. And that's an aggregate for all of your credit cards together, your total credit line. When an appliance breaks down, it's tempting to use a credit card to replace it. This is where a lot of people get into trouble. We want to see a 3 to 6 month emergency fund for certain expenses like this so that they don't need to be put on a credit card and paid off over time with that interest. And then using rewards programs as an excuse to buy more stuff. This is a trap of consumerism where you get a card from Marshall's. I know some family members that have done that. You go to Marshall's and every time you go there, you spend it, and because you want to get points, and you don't pay off that credit card because you might have 8 others in your pocket. You go to Target the next day, you use the Target credit card, and then
And
so
also,
on.
Kev, you know, with travel and mileage programs for airlines, that has a real way of changing people's behavior, and it's not always good for your financial health.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. There are a lot of consumers that get into that, and really the rewards are pennies on the dollar. So you have to spend $1,000 to maybe get, $10 worth of reward. So it's in the long run not worth it. Now, here are some great habits to help you manage your credit cards. Review your statements regularly to keep your purchases in check. This will help you actually know how much you are spending and how much you might be owing in interest, as opposed to just not opening those statements. Pay your bill on time to avoid late charges. Late charges can range anywhere from like $20 to $150, depending on the bank that issues the credit card. Pay off your full balance every month to avoid paying interest. Steve mentioned 29%. I did a little research, and the average interest rate for credit cards, whether they're rewards cards or cards that you have to pay an annual fee for, they vary a little bit, but the average is 24%, and that is just hard to dig out. If you're in a hole, you're paying 24%, it's hard to get out of that hole.
And Kevin, if I could interject something, if you're as I said this earlier too, if you have if you're not paying off your credit card balances within 90 days, that's an indication that you're living beyond your means and that you should either cut back your spending or you should somehow increase your earnings.
Yep. And also one other point, have your credit limit reduced if you're tempted to overspend. There's also secured lines of credit where you can only spend as much as you have in your savings account. That's kind of a way to get your credit started, or if you feel like you're going to go down the bad habit side, you can always have a secure line of credit and just use that card. So it's backed against the cash that you have on deposit. There are some pros to take advantage of rewards programs, but just don't spend more to get those points. Those points are nice and you can use them for a vacation maybe once every 10 years when you get enough, but don't go spending $100,000 to get $1,000 back. And protect yourself against credit card fraud. This has been on the rise. Just that's one reason to review your statements, keep an eye on your activity. And also you can pay for credit monitoring services to try and avoid any of the bad people out there that are trying to get our information. Now, the topic of this is managing debt, and credit card debt is real. And if you're in debt, which a lot of Americans are, it's going to affect your livelihood. It might stress you out, but don't worry. There are programs to get involved in, and we can help you discuss any, try to build a strategy for you. Now, here are two popular strategies. The first is called the snowball method. So to build a snowball, you start small and it gets bigger. And then an avalanche methodology is kind of starts larger and gets smaller. So let's review those. So for the snowball method, we're looking at paying off our credit card or our debt with the lowest balance first. So you want to list all your credit card balances, maybe on an Excel sheet, and other debts in order of size from the smallest balance to the largest. The smallest debt on your list is the one that we want you to focus on first in the snowball method. When it gets paid off, the next smallest debt becomes your focus until there is no more. For many people, the satisfaction of seeing that first debt get paid off quickly makes the snowball method the best choice, as it builds momentum and motivation to pay off the next card. Now, the avalanche method is called this because you pay off the most expensive debt first by focusing on the debt with the highest interest rate. To use this payoff method, list all your debts in order of interest rate from highest to lowest. The card with the highest rate on your list is the one to focus on first. When it gets paid off, move on to the debt with the second highest rate until there is no more. This allows you to pay down overall debt faster as you're taking care of the highest debt and the highest interest rate first. Now, either of these, you can use a combination of both really, but either will work. It really depends on how much debt you have, how long you've had it for, and really what your cash flow is and how much income versus other expenses you have.
I think too, what motivates you? What motivates you to make the payments? Is it going to be to pay off the biggest card first or to have fewer number of cards? They both have motivations in different ways. It's what's going to work best for you. And Kevin, what do you think about, closing if you get one paid off, closing out that credit line, closing that credit card?
Yeah, I would say that overall, you do not want to close a credit line. You were granted that credit line, and when in the short term, at least in the eyes of the credit reporting agencies that give you your score, if you close out that credit card, they're going to look at you as not as worthy of a lender to receive to have that credit line. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I think the flip side of that is you can't run up that balance again.
Yeah.
So again, it's back to the individual borrower and what motivates you, and your own behavior better than we certainly do. So if you think you pay down a credit card and you might go back and spend on that card again, you don't have that self-discipline yet. Maybe you close it, and it doesn't, it's going to affect your credit score for the short while, but not for the long run. It's what's going to work best for you as an individual.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. I'm just thinking on the personal side, I have a credit card that I don't even carry around in my wallet. I just use it for my Amazon purchases. There's a credit card I use for daily transactions. And then there's just cards that I don't even pay attention to. One that I got right before I started college. I don't even use it, but it's still out there. So you just have to try and not use your card, set it and forget it, put it in your drawer. But if you do have that temptation and it is in your behavioral finance to spend, you might just want to go ahead and close that card so the temptation's not there.
And that's in recognition that Kevin is unusual. He's been disciplined from the time he was a very young man. Not everyone has that self-control at such an early age. So don't beat yourself up if you've run up some credit lines. It's all about getting out of it now.
Yep. So your section 3 here, talking about your credit score. We gave some tips on managing credit cards. We'd also want to talk about the importance of maintaining a good credit score, because this is what's reviewed when you go to get a car, finance a car, or finance a home purchase. It definitely affects your life in more ways than you realize. So it's really important to know what goes into the number.
It may even affect your ability to get a job. A lot of employers will pull a credit report because it tells a lot about the way you're living your daily life.
Yep, and the lower your score, generally the higher interest you're going to pay. So it's tough on the consumer. These are kind of 3 household names here: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. They're the major credit bureaus in the United States, and they are able to calculate credit scores for any borrower applying for a loan. If you've ever applied for a loan, chances are you recognize these. Credit scores are 3-digit numbers that can range from a low of 300 to a high of 850. In general, a credit score of 720 or higher is considered excellent. And while the scores can vary by credit bureau, they are mainly calculated based on these 5 factors. Payment history is simply whether or not you pay your bills on time or at all. To maintain a good credit score, make sure you pay your bills on time. Your total outstanding debt is how much you owe right now. To maintain a good credit score, make sure your credit card balance is no more than 25% of your available credit. Your credit types are the mix of debt you have now. For example, a mortgage, a car loan, and a credit card. Successfully maintaining a variety of loan types can get you a higher credit score. Lenders will consider you an experienced borrower if you have, for example, a mortgage, a car loan, and a couple of credit cards. If all you have is credit card debt, you will be considered inexperienced and score lower. Your length of credit history is simply how long you've had credit. The longer your track record is of maintaining good credit and paying back loans and credit cards, the better your credit score will be. Your credit application history is the number of times you've tried to get credit, whether or not you were successful. You should avoid opening several new accounts to take advantage of small offers such as airline miles or cashbacks on purchases. Having too much credit capacity can actually make you more of a credit risk.
These people find out what their credit score is.
Yeah, so it is under a federal regulation. We as Americans have the right under annualcreditreport.com to access our credit history. And that's a good idea to go do that every year, maybe after Thanksgiving and during the holidays, to see if you've improved, see if there's any weird pulls on your credit that you don't understand. That would help avoid fraud. And also just to give yourself an archive and a file of your credit score in your report. It takes time and discipline to improve your credit score, sometimes over several years. But by paying attention to these 5 components of your credit score and managing your credit responsibly, you can maintain ideal debt management and improve your overall financial health.
Yeah, a couple of changes that just came in is that they're no longer including medical debt in your credit file. And in my experience with working with members over many years is once you make that turn, if your credit report is a complete battlefield, as soon as you stop the late payments and you start getting back on track, the score will recover pretty quickly. I'm sorry, Kevin, to interrupt.
No, that's a good point, Steve. So this slide is to show you as the attendees of this webinar here what services, really how you can plug into our assistance here through Alliant Retirement Investment Services and what we do as financial consultants. We can really help you match your financial goals with the right investments. That's done by determining how much investment risk you are comfortable with and your time horizon, just really your history as an investor. We have a lot of investment offerings through our firm LPL Financial that Stephen mentioned that can cater to all of your goals and objectives. It's really built off of personal one-on-one advice that focuses on your unique needs. And obviously, there needs to be some guidance on and advice on budgeting and behavioral finance and debt management so that we can achieve our key financial goals that we can help you determine. Our team puts together webinars. There's probably more than 10 every month, and that these can be found through our website. In addition to the website, there's a blog that can be found there, and there's still a podcast that's going on. One of our financial consultants has a podcast, I believe, that's recorded monthly. And to conclude, here is our contact information. We are happy to answer any questions you have and look forward to talking with you in the future.
Before
Yes,
you
Steve.
conclude, I'll ask you a trick question. How do you get out of a hole?
I'm not quite sure.
You stop digging first.
And that's a
That's
good
true
one.
debt as well.
Yes, we don't want to keep digging. We're just going to keep going further down. So we're here to assist with anything from debt management to investment advice. And we hope you took a few points out of this webinar, and we look forward to speaking with you in the future.